there, I'm Olivia. Thanks so much for joining me. Today I thought it would be fun to do kind of a side-by-side comparison of what like no makeup looks like versus actual no makeup. I feel like we see that term kind of thrown around a lot and so many people are doing like the no makeup look, but like honestly I feel like anyway a lot of the times the people that are doing it already have like pretty amazing looking skin, which I do not. So I thought it would be kind of fun to see like realistically what does that actually look like when you're trying to cover up like dark circles and acne spots and things like that. Can you actually make it look like no makeup? We'll see. So anyway, let's get started. Okay, let's zoom on in. This is serious business time. So I was looking through all my products and picking out what I wanted to use today, and it was pretty minimal what I picked out. Basically, I'm going to be using concealer, kind of a blush faux bronzer product, a highlight, and then filling in my brows a bit. So I think for today, I'm gonna go ahead and keep my left side makeup free. I think the fact that I have a few more breakouts on my right side is just gonna make it a little bit more interesting and kind of a little bit more challenging. I think if I was just gonna do my left side, it wouldn't be so hard to even it out a little bit. So that's what I'm gonna do today. And I wanted to make sure I picked a concealer that was as close to my skin tone as possible. A lot of times I end up going for something that's a little bit lighter to do like a brightening effect. But for today, I just wanna keep it as close as possible so it's the least obvious. And I'm planning to use my sponge for most of my makeup here. I just feel like it's gonna help it to look as kind of diffused and most natural as possible. So the first concealer I'm using here is my Essence Camouflage Matte Concealer. This is in the shade 30 Light Honey. And we'll just start spot concealing a bit with this. And I definitely want to work in like thin, light layers. I don't want this to look at all cakey or heavy. And I did go ahead and start with a moisturizer on both sides. That's something that I would always do even if I wasn't wearing makeup. And I don't expect to totally cover everything up. I don't think that that would look realistic, but just to kind of even it out a bit more. And while I'm trying to focus on the areas that I have like acne spots or scarring, I do want to make sure that I kind of drag whatever's left on my sponge over the rest of my face, just so that it kind of overall evens it out without there being like a ton of product. Let's do one more layer over those spots and then we'll call that good. I know I'm not going to be able to conceal the texture that I have there, so I'm not overly concerned with completely covering up the color because you're still going to be able to see the texture and I don't want it to look makeup-y. So if we can just even it out a little bit, I'll be happy. I think that looks realistic. You can still see the texture, you can still see a little discoloration, but overall it's a lot more evened out. Then for underneath my eyes, I'm gonna use a different concealer. This one is the Laura Geller Baked Radiance Cream Concealer. This one's in the shade Porcelain. I like this one because it's slightly more yellow, and so I feel like it's gonna help kind of counteract these lovely dark blue friends that we have hanging out underneath my eyes. And it's super emollient. I'm not planning to set it with powder, so I feel like that's gonna help it to, if it does start to settle into creases at all, I can just kind of tap it out throughout the day and it's not an issue, whereas a super like matte, kind of heavier concealer, this one does dry down a bit more matte. If it settles into creases, I wouldn't be able to so easily just tap it out, it would be more obvious. Doing a light layer so it doesn't totally cover up the darkness, but I'm okay with that because I would expect of someone that's not wearing any makeup, unless of course they're like perfect model skin or something, I would expect that they would have some darkness underneath their eyes, but this just greatly reduces it. You can see there's an obvious difference between this side and this side. Okay, so next I'm gonna put on a little bit of blush, and I definitely don't wanna wear a lot. I feel like blush is something that can pretty easily, for me anyway, get out of hand because I love it. But it is gonna add just a nice kind of natural looking flush. And I picked the Flower Beauty Blush Balm in the shade Cinnamon. I love this one, I've talked about it a ton, but I like that it's kind of a pinky brown. I think for me that's a pretty kind of natural looking color, and I definitely don't feel like I also need a bronzer with this one. So I'm just gonna add a tiny bit and blend that out with a stippling brush. And I want that on kind of the apple of my cheek, but a little bit further back and kind of blending up. And that was just a tiny bit of product that I used. This definitely can go a long way. And I just want the littlest bit of a flush, just so that it looks healthy, but not really adding a ton of like color. And next I want to add just a little bit of highlight. My skin is already pretty dewy because I used moisturizer first. I didn't add like a full coverage foundation on top. I used a beauty sponge to blend that out, but I do want to add just a little bit for kind of an extra glow. And I definitely want to stick with a cream product. I feel like that's going to blend in the easiest and look the most natural. So this is my Tarte Gleam Team Highlighter. This is in the shade Champagne. I'm using the cream side. So I'm just going to apply a little bit onto the high points here and blend that out with my finger. So it's not like a stripe of highlighter, it's not super obvious, it just adds like a little extra bit of glow. Okay, and then next I'm going to do just a bit for my brows. So I feel like brows is one of the things, for me anyway, that can accelerate very quickly and go from like natural to like whoa there, like super fast. So I'm going to start by just brushing through them with the spoolie side. I do want to add a tiny bit of product, but not a lot. My brows are pretty full, so it's not like I have a ton of like sparse places, but there are a few areas that I would definitely prefer to have filled in a little bit. And this is the e.l.f. brow pencil in, is it natural brown or neutral brown? The print is so tiny. I think it's natural brown. So I'm just gonna add a few strokes in the front. Help deposit any little product kind of throughout so it's not like super heavy in one spot. Add a little bit to the top here where I feel like my brows kind of dip down a little bit funny. Okay, there we go. So super minimal. I don't want there to be any obvious spots where it's like, oh, hey, look, that's where you filled your brows in. I just wanted to add like just a little bit of something to kind of change the shape to more what I like, but in a really like subtle way where it's just adding like almost a bit of shadow. Because I like the shape better when it's more filled in up here. You can see on this side too, it kind of dips down slightly. Okay, so I like that a lot. I think that that worked well. So for my eyes, of course, we're keeping it super, you know, light and natural. I did put down just what was kind of left on my sponge here for concealer on my eyes. So in that way, it's kind of primed. But I am gonna grab what for me is like a skin tone shadow from my Warrior palette. I'm gonna grab the shade Hasi, I think, and just kind of set that down to just, first of all, make sure that the concealer that's there doesn't crease, but also to just kind of neutralize any like darkness that I have on my lid. So it's a subtle difference, but I just like how it brightens up the whole area a little bit here with that shadow as compared to over here where it's actually quite dark on my lid. Okay, cool beans. And then the last thing I want to do is just tightline a little bit. I don't want to do any liner on the top lash because I just think that would look kind of obvious. You would definitely be able to tell that I'm wearing eyeliner, but I do just want to tightline a little bit to thicken up that lash line without adding any kind of like obvious line. And this one is the Milani Stay Put Waterproof Eyeliner in Hooked on Espresso. I feel like the brown is going to be just a little bit more subtle. Well, I inadvertently drew a tiny wing. Smudge that in, shall we? Actually, I don't mind the look of that, just like a tiny bit on the upper lash line right in the corner here, but just like smudged right into the lash line. So you really couldn't put your finger on where the line is. It's just like that tiniest bit of darkness that adds just a little bit of thickness. Okay, cool. So if you really wanted to keep it like as natural looking as possible, I think that this is a really great stopping point. You can kind of see the difference here really. I think it's amazing to kind of look at them side by side with the differences. I'm really not wearing hardly any makeup over here, and what we did put on you saw was super minimal, but it just kind of evens everything up a little bit. It just fills in areas a little bit, and I really, really like the effect. So kind of seeing it side by side is interesting like that. I think for me though, I do think that this is like the most natural makeup that I could do, but I do want to add some mascara just because I prefer how my eyes look with that. So today I'm actually going to be using my L'Oreal Voluminous Million Lashes Excess, specifically because I typically don't like this mascara. I don't like this normally because I just don't feel like it really gives me as much volume as I would expect from something called, you know, Voluminous Million Lashes. But I do feel like in a lot more natural way, it just kind of, it feels like a lash tint to me, if we're being totally honest here, which is not normally what I want, but for this kind of a look, I think it makes sense. So I'm just gonna add some to the top lashes. There we go. See, super minimal. It really didn't add much length. It didn't really even add that much volume. It just kind of coats the lashes a little bit so that you can see some separation. So I think that this is an extremely natural look. I think if you didn't really want to look like you're wearing makeup, maybe you are in school or you're at a job where you're really not wanting to you know, look flashy or anything like that, I think that this is a good option. So again, this is kind of the finished look side by side here. So you have kind of the original totally makeup free side here, and then my no makeup look over here. So I really like how it turned out. I'm happy with it. I think so that I can, you know, go about the rest of my day without looking odd. I'll do the other side to match, but I just think it's kind of interesting to see what no makeup can actually look like and how you can still totally look like yourself, but just kind of, you know, a little bit polished. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed and found it helpful. Definitely leave a comment down below if you have any thoughts about no makeup, if that's kind of your thing, or if you normally like to do more full face. I typically go for a more full face, but it's kind of nice to just keep it natural sometimes. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I see you again soon. Bye!